Kicking off today with Seth Rollins, who made his first televised World Heavyweight Championship defense on this week's Raw, retaining the title against the Judgment Day's Damian Priest. This was Seth's second defense overall, as he defeated The Miz last weekend at a live event, but his next title defense may be as part of WWE NXT. After attacking Ilya Dragunov on this week's episode, Bron Breakker was asked to explain his actions and said he did it because he felt Ilya's comment about being the most intense superstar was garbage. Breakker said he'll be holding everyone accountable from the top to the bottom of WWE, and when addressing the top, issued a challenge to the World Heavyweight Champion. Rollins hasn't competed in NXT in close to a decade, and as Breakker pointed out during his promo, it was Seth who was the first NXT champion, a title Bron has held on 2 occasions. While the match hasn't been made official yet, fans can expect an announcement soon enough. And what do you think of Rollins defending the World Heavyweight Championship against Bron Breakker? If you've been watching WWE NXT, you'll have seen plenty of main roster superstars appear on the gold brand, with both Baron Corbin and Mustafa Ali showing up last week. Both Corbin and Ali returned to NXT during this week's episode, but the latest edition of the gold brand also saw an appearance by Dana Brooke. When asked why she was at the event, the former 24/7 champion made it clear that she wanted a shot at the NXT Women's Championship and would be competing in the Battle Royal later that night. Unfortunately for Dana, that match didn't go her way, as the bout saw Thea Hale emerge victorious, earning a title match against the new NXT Women's Champion, Tiffany Stratton. It'll be interesting to see if this was a one-off appearance for Brooke or the start of a second run in NXT, as plenty of superstars have thrived after returning to the brand, including Finn Balor and Mandy Rose. Outside of the 24/7 title, Brooke has yet to taste gold in WWE, and what do you think of her return to NXT? Sound off in the comments below. During this week's Raw, Vince McMahon was backstage at the show, and only the second time he's been at a WWE event since his retirement last July. It was during the Raw after WrestleMania 39 that McMahon's last-minute changes led to the show being critically panned, but this week, things were far calmer in comparison. Mike Johnson of PW Insider reports that Vince McMahon didn't run the show from Gorilla, but he did reorder matches and segments to suit his ideas for the show. While this did result in changes, it wasn't an overly stressful situation, and Johnson also reported that there wasn't resentment or anger from talent on this occasion. One WWE superstar said that the Band-Aid has already been ripped off, referencing McMahon's Raw return after WrestleMania 39, but that doesn't mean that the talent and staff will take it easy when the boss is around. There is said to be an unspoken understanding among talent that McMahon is back on the throne, and that while he isn't around every week, he is firmly in charge, and his desires will be met. As previously reported, McMahon was said to be furious about what happened after Raw, as Seth Rollins and Damian Priest shook hands after their title match in a spot that wasn't planned in advance. Though Triple H is officially WWE's head of creative and head of talent, his father-in-law has the power to overrule the game's decisions, and whether fans like it or not, Vince McMahon sits on his throne as the ruler of his wrestling kingdom. In less than 2 weeks, CM Punk will be back on AEW programming as part of the much-anticipated AEW Collision, and there's been plenty of talk about plans for the former world champion. Samoa Joe and Chris Jericho have both been discussed as potential feuds for Punk, but the man himself has shown interest in the work of Jay White since the ex-New Japan star arrived in AEW. In the latest edition of the SRS Backstage report, Sean Ross Sapp said behind Fightful's paywall that AEW has some ideas in place for CM Punk's AEW return, one of which includes White. The idea being considered is for Punk to team up for a faction with FTR to face the Bullet Club Gold, as in addition to White, Punk has taken a liking to Gold member Juice Robinson. Sapp also confirmed previous reports of strong suggestions for CM Punk to work with Chris Jericho and Samoa Joe, so there's clearly a lot of options on the table. Whatever comes next for CM Punk, it'll be a hot topic of discussion for wrestling fans. And do you like the idea for this faction warfare against Bullet Club Gold, or should AEW be going in a different direction? Clearly, there's a lot of debate as to who Punk will be facing in AEW, but whoever he chooses to wrestle, fans won't have to wait long to see it happen. On tonight's AEW Dynamite, Tony Khan will make yet another announcement regarding Collision, and that announcement could be about CM Punk. Fight Fans UK reports that unlike Punk's debut at the First Dance edition of Rampage in August 2021, Punk is expected to compete during the premiere edition of Collision. Plans for Punk to compete in the United Center in Chicago have been in AEW's plans for a few weeks, but nothing has been confirmed as to who he'll be facing in the match. Whatever Khan's announcement tonight turns out to be, there are a lot of big plans for AEW Collision, but those will all hinge on CM Punk being able to keep out of trouble after he returns. For over a year, Randy Orton has been out of action for a serious back injury, one that has left some people of the opinion that his in-ring career may be unfortunately over. Throughout his career, the Viper has leveled countless opponents with an RKO, often out of nowhere, but years upon years of back bumps seem to have caught up with the Viper. During an episode of his Extreme Life podcast, Matt Hardy discussed how a wrestler's physical condition can deteriorate over time and recalled a discussion with Orton when they were both in WWE. He said, "I had a long conversation with Randy Orton. He was talking about how messed up his body was just from doing the RKO over and over and over again, and, I told him, you can only imagine how my hips and lower back feel after all those leg drops over all the years, but he was just talking about how bad his balance was, that he didn't realize, and that kind of got me thinking, and I've done more balance training than anything else recently, and I feel like it's helped me on my movement and whatnot, and hopefully my flexibility." It's been over a year since Orton's most recent match, and while WWE were hopeful that he'd be back in time for SummerSlam 2022, that obviously didn't happen. Orton's father, Cowboy Bob Orton, recently revealed that doctors have advised Randy from wrestling again, but it's been said that WWE have some plans for his return in the works. A multimillionaire who has done it all in WWE, Orton hardly needs to wrestle again, but could still choose to if he wishes, and while his return won't be this summer as previously reported, we're continuing to wish him a healthy recovery. As we mentioned earlier, Mustafa Ali recently showed up in NXT and wasted no time in starting a program with Joe Gacy. It was on this week's NXT that Ali defeated Gacy and announced that he will win Championship Gold in NXT, and we'll be seeing plenty more of him on Tuesday nights. In a report about both Ali and Baron Corbin, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select revealed that Ali has proven to be popular among the NXT roster. As he stated, WWE sources that Fightful Select spoke to said that there were tentative plans in place quite a while ago for Baron Corbin and Mustafa Ali to both work NXT. One of the reasons that the free agent tag was put on them. That same source said that despite a lot of things from the previous regime that made the cynicism around the free agent tags understandable, there was more of a plan for them this time. There were several NXT talent who specifically had requested to work with Mustafa Ali, and word we got was that Ali was more than happy to oblige. The goal for these appearances was to add interest in NXT, help refresh Ali and Corbin, assess the talent they'll be working with, and get experience for NXT talent with people who have worked with main roster TV and style for quite a while. The report added that Ali and Corbin will continue to appear on NXT, but this isn't a permanent move to the brand, and that the pair can continue to appear on Raw and SmackDown as and when needed. Main roster talent have been appearing on NXT for some time now, and it's always interesting to see who makes the move. What's your take on bringing main roster talent back for another run on NXT? Sound off in the comments. Last week, Tommaso Ciampa was backstage at Monday Night Raw, fueling speculation that not only would he be returning, but would be reuniting with his old friend Johnny Gargano. Ciampa didn't appear on last week's Raw though, leaving some to speculate as to what is going on with the former NXT champion, and this week's Raw has only raised more questions. As PW Insider reports, Ciampa was not around backstage during this week's Raw, but that isn't the entire story about his situation. In an update, WWE sources revealed that Ciampa had been asked to attend this week's Raw at the XL Center in Hartford, but at the last moment was told that he no longer needed to show up. While we can't say for certain that this change was a Vince McMahon call, it is known that he was backstage at Raw, and last-minute changes has been the chairman's MO for years. Ciampa once claimed he'd never leave NXT, but is now a Raw superstar, and it remains to be seen when he'll be appearing next on Monday nights. More from NXT as this week's episode saw Ava Raine in action, as the fourth-generation superstar had her first match on an episode of the Gold brand. While Ava made her in-ring debut during the Stand and Deliver event on Peacock, this week marked her first match on the USA Network, and the daughter of The Rock thrived in her role. In the mixed tag team match, Ava, Jagger Reed, and Rip Fowler defeated the Creed brothers and Ivy Nile, and it was Ava who got the pinfall for her team. This win didn't come clean though, as Ava capitalized on a distraction when the referee's attention was diverted and used her schism mask to level Nile with a devastating headbutt to get the win. Clean or not, a win is a win. And what did you think to Ava's work and the match itself during this week's episode of NXT? At this time, Zelina Vega, Becky Lynch, and Zoe Stark have all qualified for the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match, and now Piper Niven wants in. Taking to Twitter, Niven made it clear that she wants in the match, utilizing a Rick James meme in the process, and given that she hasn't appeared on WWE TV in close to 2 months, we'll have to see if Niven gets her shot to compete in London. As one of the top names in AEW, Jon Moxley is the target of many wrestlers, and now New Japan's El Desperado wants a piece of the former world champion. Speaking after GCW Cage of Survival 2, Desperado said he wants what Moxley can give him in the ring, and while the pair briefly crossed paths in July of last year in New Japan, it may be just a matter of time before a rematch plays out in an AEW ring. In his 5 matches with WWE, Logan Paul has impressed even the most cynical of fans, with his matches against the Mysterios, The Miz, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins receiving praise. It's been said that Paul is expected back this summer, with some speculating on a match at SummerSlam, and the Maverick will be bringing some new offense when he returns. On social media, footage emerged of Paul sparring with UFC's Israel Adesanya, a known wrestling fan, during an intense workout in Puerto Rico. Adesanya, alongside UFC featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski, has been assisting the YouTube personality-turned-boxer in enhancing his MMA skills, and at one point, Adesanya methodically applied a triangle choke, eventually forcing Paul to tap out. Despite being caught in the submission hold, Paul maintained a positive attitude and humorously remarked, "I almost made it out," as he took this unofficial loss in great stride. When it comes to training in MMA, it makes a ton of sense for Paul to work with 2 big names in the world of UFC, and we'll have to see what kind of offense the Maverick brings when he's back in the squared circle. Like Logan Paul, Ronda Rousey is one of the biggest names in the mainstream to ever sign with the company, and this week, the reality show Stars on Mars premiered on Fox. The show includes Rousey and other celebrities trying to survive in a simulation of life on the Red Planet, and the show has seen some impressive figures. The first episode premiered directly opposite the first hour of Raw this week, which likely affected WWE's viewing figures, as Stars on Mars drew a total 1.323 million viewers. The show also drew an impressive 0.43 in the coveted 18 to 49 demographic, and given the list of celebrities involved, it'll be interesting to see if Stars on Mars can keep these figures going. And we're ending with more from Logan Paul, who, as we mentioned, has trained with some UFC stars and now has big plans for the Octagon. On his Impulsive podcast, the Maverick said that he would love to become the first person to hold a WWE, UFC, and boxing championship simultaneously, and is confident that he will hold a title in WWE in time. Although Paul was unsuccessful in his undisputed WWE Universal title match against Roman Reigns last year, he did hold his own against the Tribal Chief. And do you think that Paul's dream will one day become a reality? Let us know in the comments.